Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrtikacharya Astotara Satta Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adigaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Nath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Greetings from Sri Dham Mayapur. Today we are continuing our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in the first canto, 16th chapter. And today's verses are 13 through 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Tatra Tatropasrinvana Svapur Vesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Chayasha Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam Chaparitratam Ashvatam Nostra Tejasaha Sneham Cha Vrishni Partatnam Tesham Bhaktim Chakeshave Tebya Parama Santushta Prityuj Rimbitalochanaha Mahadandaniva Samsi Dadhauharan Mahamanaha Tatra Tatro Pashrinvana Svapurvesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Chayasha Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam Cha Paritratam Ashvatam Nostra Tejasaha Sneham Cha Vrishni Partanam Tesham Bhaktim Chakeshave Tebya Parama Santushta Prityuj Rimbitalochanaha Mahadhananivam Vasamsi Dadauharan Mahamanaha Tatra Tatro Pasrinvana Svapur Vesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Chayashaha Krishna Mahatmya Suchakam Atmanam Cha Paritratam Ashvatam Nostra Tejasa Sneham Cha Vrishni Partanam Tesham Bhaktim Chakeshave Tebya Parama Santushta Prityuj Rimbhita Lochanaha Mahadhanani Vasamsi Dadauharan Mahamanaha. Please chant.
Hare Krishna. Tatra Tatropasarvanaha Sarva Purvesham Mahatmanam Pragiyamanam Cha Yasha Krishna Mahatmyam Suchakam Atmanam Cha Paritratam Ashvathamon Shastra Tejasa Sneham Cha Vrishni Parthanam Tesham Bhaktim Cha Keshave तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्टः प्रत्युज्य भीतलोचनः महाधनानि वासांसि ददोहारान् महामनः
तत्र तत्रोपश्यन्वान स्वपूर्वेशं महात्मनं प्रगीयमानं च यश कृष्णमाहात्म्यसूचकम् आत्मानं च परित्रातम् अश्वत्थाम्नोऽस्त्र तेजस स्नेहं च वृष्णिपार्थानां तेजं भक्तिं च केशवे तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्ट कृत्युजृम्भितलोचन महाधनानि वासांसि ददौ हारन् महामना
तत्र तत्रोपशृण्वाना स्वपूर्वेशं महात्मनां प्रगीयमानां च यशा कृष्णमहात्मसूचकम् आत्मानं च परित्रातम् अश्वत्थाम्नोऽस्त्र तेजस स्नेहं च विष्णोपार्थानां तेषं भक्तिं च केशवे तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्ट प्रीत्युज्जम्बितलोचना महाधनानि वासांसि ददौ हरान् महामना। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण। तत्र तत्रोपशृण्वानः स्वपूर्वेषां महात्मनां प्रगीयमाणां च यशः कृष्णम् आहात्मा सूचकम् आत्मानं च परित्रातम् अश्वत्थाम्नोऽस्त्रतेजसः स्नेहं च वृष्णिपार्थानां तेषां भक्तिं च केशवे तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्टः प्रत्युज्जृम्भितलोचनः महाधनानि वासांसि ददौ हारान् महामना। हरे कृष्ण।
Anyone else?
तत्र तत्रोपशृण्वाना स्वपूर्वेषां महात्मनां प्रगीयमानं च यशः कृष्णमाहात्म्यसूचकम् आत्मानं च परित्रातम् अश्वत्थाम्नोऽस्त्र तेजसा स्नेहं च वृष्णिपार्थानां तेषां भक्तिं च केशवे तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्टा प्रीत्युजृम्भितलोचना महाधनानि वासांसि
ददौ हराणि महात्मना।
Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see the last line of that shloka.
Oh,
Last part.
go ahead. If it's there.
Dadau haran mahamanaha.
Okay. Yeah, it's 3 verses. It's hard to fit on one screen, I suppose. Okay. Tatra tatra, everywhere the king visited. Upashrinvanaha, continuously he heard. Svapurvesham, about his own forefathers. Maha atmanam, who were all great devotees of the Lord. Pragiyamanam, unto those who were thus addressing. Cha, also. Yashaha, glories. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Mahatmya, glorious acts. Suchakam, indicating. Atmanam, his personal self. Cha, also. Paritratam, delivered. Ashvatamnaha, of Ashvatthama. Astra, weapon. Tejasaha, powerful rays. Sneham, affection. Cha, also. Vrishni Parthanam, between descendants of Vrishni and those of Pritha. Tesham, all of them. Bhaktim, devotion. Cha, also. Keshave, unto Lord Krishna. Tebyaha, unto them. Parama, extremely. Santushtaha, pleased. Priti, attraction. Ujrimbhita, pleasingly open. Lochanaha, one who has such eyes. Mahadhanani, valuable riches. Vasamsi, clothing. Dadao, gave in charity. Haran, necklace. Mahamanaha, one who has a broader outlook. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Wherever the king visited, talking about Maharaj Parikshit, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashvatthama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Pritha, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Purport. Kings and great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is a system from time immemorial, and Maharaj Parikshit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all parts of the world as he visited those places. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, and as the king means the king and his confidential associates. Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated, and therefore glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord and vice versa. Maharaj Parikshit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna had they not been connected with the acts of Lord Krishna. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees, Paritranaya Sadhunam, Bhagavad Gita 4:8. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parikshit felt the presence of the Lord when he was glorified by his acts, especially when he was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. The devotees of the Lord are never in danger, but in the material world, which is full of dangers at every step, the devotees are apparently placed into dangerous positions. And when they are saved by the Lord is glorified. Lord Krishna would not have been glorified as the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita had his devotees, like the Pandavas, not been entangled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All such acts of the Lord were mentioned in the addresses of welcome, and Maharaj Parikshit, in full satisfaction, rewarded those who presented such addresses. The difference between the presentation of welcome addresses today and those in those days is that formerly the welcome addresses were presented to a person like Maharaj Parikshit. The welcome addresses were full of facts and figures, and those who presented such addresses were sufficiently rewarded, whereas in the present days, the welcome addresses are presented not always with factual statements, but to please the post holder, and often they are full of flattering lies. And rarely are those who present such welcome addresses rewarded by the poor receiver. The translation again. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashvatthama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Pritha, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesha Srimati Pashtatu Deshatane Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatrubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Chapatitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today is also the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so I'll speak a little on today's verse, and then I'll also speak on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It actually connects very nicely with today's verse, what I'm going to speak about, so that works out quite well. So first, I'm going to tell a story that happened to me recently. And this is sort of an embarrassing story, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because sometimes when we share our embarrassing stories, it makes us more likely to learn from them. And it also gives people the opportunity to learn from our mistakes. I'm a big fan of learning from other mistakes. I've been doing it for a very long time. It means that you don't have to go through the problem yourself. You just learn from someone else's mistakes. So if I'm not good at learning from my own mistakes, but I'm very good at learning from others. So if any of you can learn from my mistakes, then that's quite nice. So example of me learning from someone else's mistake. When I was young, I had a brother, and he had a drinking problem. So much so that it eventually killed him, very slowly but surely. And so observing my brother when he was sober, and he was quite kind, knowledgeable, big-hearted, gentle, very, very nice fellow when he was sober. But when he was drunk, he was a very different person. And so from a young age, I saw that, and I knew, okay, I'm never going to do that, because I don't want to be that other person that my brother turns into. And so learning from others' mistakes is quite valuable. So from a young age, I decided I'm never going to drink, and I never did. So I made many other dumb mistakes, but at least that one I learned from someone else's. So back to the recent story. So recently, I was having lunch with a group of devotees here in Mayapur, and I've known these devotees for over 10 years. We know each other very well, and so while we're having lunch, one of the devotees said, "Oh, Carucandra, whenever I have," and then he named some snack that one time when I was traveling with them. Sometimes when we travel, we, obviously in ideal situations, everything we eat is cooked at a temple, offered to the deities, preferably even from a garden that's, specifically meant for Krishna, etc., from, cows that are properly taken care of, etc. But sometimes, the situation isn't ideal. We're traveling or we're on Sankirtan. And sometimes we have to make do with some packaged food, right? And then we offer it to our guru and hope that, the sin is taken away. So anyway, this devotee recently, he said, whenever I see this product, I think of you, and I'm thinking, oh man, it's just a random packaged snack, and that's what they think. And then another devotee in the group said, oh, and then whenever I think of some another packaged snack, said I think of you there, and I'm thinking, man, it's every devotee's goal to whoever sees them, they think of Krishna, right? This is what we're meant, how we're meant to remind people of Krishna. This is how we're meant to be. So when this happened there at the lunch, I kind of felt remorse. I was like, okay, well, it's nice that they think of me, but when I'm only thought in relation to snacks, prepackaged snacks, it's quite unfortunate. And so but it fits because I'm still an aspiring devotee. I'm working on it, but there are two things that we can learn from that little story there and today's verse, right? Well, actually, there are many things that we can learn, but there are two very important things that we're going to talk about. And so the first thing is that we should always act in such a way that people are constantly reminded of Krishna, right? It should be that when people see us, they remember Krishna. When people introduce us to someone or talk about us, everything they say should be about Krishna, his pastimes, his service, his devotees, etc. So that's the first thing. And obviously, we have to slowly work up to that. As we become purified in our own service, then we can be better examples for others. So the other very important thing we can learn from today's verse is when we meet a great devotee, friend, or a superior, this is actually how we should receive them, right? We should let the devotees know that they remind us of Krishna and that we appreciate their valuable association. But we have to do it in such a way as to not embarrass them. So most devotees, they don't like hearing their own glories because they just want to be instruments of Krishna, right? They understand that Krishna is the supreme doer, that we're just meant to be instruments of Krishna. So we see here that Maharaj Parikshit, he's not being glorified directly. He's being glorified through his family members who were devotees, through incidents that happened to him, but it was more about Krishna, right? So he was protected in the womb when Ashwatthama fired the Brahmastra at him in the womb. And so Krishna was there to protect him. So they're telling this story. So the story involves him, but it's all about Krishna, right? About his service, about his previous relatives and their service to Krishna, and how basically everyone's connection to Krishna and how dear they are, right? So when we see devotees, or we have to introduce them, or when we're thinking about them, and not necessarily glorifying them directly, but speak of their service, speak of their temple, speak of something that you have in common, their favorite deities, their spiritual master, etc. There's so many things that so many ways to appreciate devotees, and let them know that they're actually helping you remember Krishna without embarrassing them or without making them feel uncomfortable. So these are two things that we can learn from today's verse and purport, right? And these are very important things that we should do. So one, again, just gradually become the type of person whose character just exudes Krishna consciousness, so that when people see us, they automatically just think of Krishna, nothing else, right? Not prepackaged snacks, not silly movies or anything like that, but Krishna's pastimes, like that. So again, it takes a bit of time to get to that point, but we should have this in our mind. And then two is that we should follow this example, and when we see devotees, we should also express this type of appreciation, right? And so I'm going to ask a question before we move on. There are actually three things that we are meant to do when receiving a guest. I know Mother Vindyavali knows them. Who wants to unmute themselves and say, there's many things that we're meant to do, but there's at least 3 that we're supposed to do when a guest comes to us. Anyone? If no one else wants to say it, Mother Vinyavali.
You give something to drink.
Okay, good.
A seat. Offer a seat. Offering a seat.
Yes, seat, drink, and what's the last one?
Smiling face and welcoming with water. First you ask for water.
Kind
Words.
What was it?
Kind words.
Kind words, very good. Thank you. So Mother Vinyavali, of course, the smiling face should also be there with the kind words, right? And the water, again, the drink. So a seat, comfortable seat, kind words, and water. Because if you don't have anything, at least you can give that, right? So these are the kind words, though, right? This is the format that we should follow for kind words. It shouldn't just be, appreciating some material quality that a person has or anything like that. It should be related to Krishna, right? And so we can take this to the next level when we are appreciating guests or introducing them or meeting them for after being away for a long time. We can follow this format and just show our appreciation in a very proper way. So today being the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I'm going to read. This is from Srila Prabhupada. He was giving an address in 1968, and it was actually in LA. It was actually for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day. But I was reading through some of the appearance day lectures, and he says a lot of the same points, but this one has a very, very important point that refers again to today's verse. So I'm choosing this one. So this is LA, December of 1968, and Srila Prabhupada says, when my spiritual master appeared at Jagannath Puri, so first off, Srila Prabhupada is saying, means when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born. He was born in Jagannath Puri. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was actually this is written here, so I'll keep going. So he was the son of a very big government officer, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was magistrate, government officer. In those days, a magistrate is a big officer in the government, practically next to the governor. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in charge of the Jagannath temple. That is the system in Jagannath Puri. The manager in charge of the temple is the district magistrate. So there was a Rath Yatra festival, and the car was passing in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's name was Kedarnath Datta. When he was magistrate, he was known as K.N. Datta, Kedarnath Datta. So the car stopped before his house, and at that time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a child in the lap of his mother, he was actually 6 months old at this time. Oh, and before I move on, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born, he actually had his umbilical cord wrapped around like a Brahman thread. So it was over his left shoulder and then came down to his right side, right? And so it was just a nice auspicious symbol when he was born. You can picture such a pure devotee just chanting Gayatri on his umbilical cord in the womb, right? Having remembered from his previous life. So very auspicious. And then 6 months later, he's sitting on the lap of his mother, and Lord Jagannath's cart stops outside of his window, right? We remember from Chaitanya Charitamrita that this actually happens often, where Lord Jagannath, he just wants to stop. He wants to take a break. And no matter how hard they try to push, no matter how many elephants they bring, the cart will not budge until the Lord actually wants to move, right? And so there's one pastime with Lord Chaitanya, after they were trying to get it to move for such a long time with all these elephants and such. Then Lord Chaitanya put his head on the cart and just pushed it, and then it started moving. So he encouraged the Lord to move on. So anyway, 6 months old, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on the lap of his mother, and Lord Jagannath stops because he wanted to see his young devotee. And so since then we'll go back to the Srila Prabhupada's lecture. So The mother took the opportunity of rising on the car. She was the magistrate's wife, so she had the facility. Immediately, people gave her way to go on top of the car and place the child on the lotus feet of Jagannath. And there were many garlands. One garland fell upon him, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Blessings. This is one of the, there are so many other things. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining. So Lord Jagannath stops, his mother takes him out to the cart, lays him down at Lord Jagannath's feet, and Lord Jagannath gave him one of his garlands. So very special. Then, when he was a child, 2-3 years old, he ate one mango fruit, which was kept for offering to the deity. So his father rebuked him. Oh, you have done a very wrong thing. It was meant for the deity, and you have taken it. You should not have done that. The child was 2 or 3 years old. He took it so seriously that never after that he took mango. This is the rest of his life. He never ate a mango again. Whenever we offered him mango, he said, no, I am an offender. I cannot take mango. He was thinking like that, you see. Never in his life he took a mango. He was thinking that I offended in my childhood by taking the mango of the deity. This is the characteristic of Acharya. They teach by their life's action that one should be so determined that one should not be. A child took the mango. There was no offense, but he took that vow anyway, right? So mistakes made, he's 2 or 3 years old, not a big deal. His father didn't even think it was a big deal. He just wanted to show that you have to wait until it's offered. But he took that as a lifetime lesson. He never took mango ever again. This we're actually going to bring up again in a little bit. Another instance in my presence at that time, we were also young men, and one of my godbrothers, his name is Dr. Aul Bihari Kapoor. He is now retired in Vrindavan last time I saw him. He was also a young man, and his wife was also young. We were sitting together, talking with Guru Maharaj, and the girl proposed, my dear master, I want to speak to you. So Guru Maharaj said, yes, you can talk whatever you like. So she said, I want to talk with you secretly, not in the presence of everyone. Guru Maharaj said, no, I cannot talk with you secretly. You can talk in the presence of all my other disciples. So even that girl was just like his granddaughter by age calculation. He refused to talk with that young woman in a secret place. These are instances. So in his life, he was Akhanda Brahmachari. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had many other sons, and he was the 5th son. And some of his other brothers also, they did not marry. And my Guru Maharaj, he also did not marry. From the childhood, he is strict brahmachari, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. And he underwent very severe penances for starting this movement, worldwide movement. That was his mission. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to do this. He, in 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to introduce this Krishna consciousness movement by sending this book, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and precepts. So just a side point here before we continue on. In his dedication to teachings of Lord Chaitanya, our Srila Prabhupada dedicated that particular book. It's a summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita, of the conversations which take place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so this is what the dedication says. Dedicated to the sacred service of Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who initiated the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world, in McGill University, Canada, in 1896, the year of my birth. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote this book, and he sent it out, and McGill University in Canada actually put it in their library. So this was the very beginning of Krishna consciousness coming to the Western world. So that was started by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the very year that our Srila Prabhupada was born. So back to Srila Prabhupada's lecture. Fortunately, that year was my birth year, and by Krishna's arrangement, we came in contact. I was born in a different family. My Guru Maharaj was born in a different family. Who knew that I will come to his protection? Who knew that I would come to America? Who knew that you American boys will come to me? These are all Krishna's arrangement. We cannot understand how things are taking place. In 1936, today is 9th December, 1968. That means 32 years ago. In Bombay, I was then doing some business. All of a sudden, perhaps on this date, sometime between 9th or 10th December, at that time, Guru Maharaj was indisposed a little, and he was staying at Jagannath Puri on the seashore. So I wrote him a letter. My dear master, your other disciples, Brahmachari, Sannyasi, they're all rendering you direct service, and I am a householder. I cannot live with you. I cannot serve you nicely. So I do not know how I can serve you. Simply an idea. I was thinking of serving him. How can I serve him seriously? So the reply was dated 13th of December, 1936. In that letter, he wrote, my dear such and such, I am very glad to receive your letter. I think you should try to push our movement in English. That was his writing. And that will do good to you and to the people who will help you. That was his instruction. So I want to insert one more tidbit here, because just as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he started the spread of Lord Chaitanya's movement to the West by sending that book to Canada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he also took up that mission, and he sent some disciple, Ban Maharaj, to London to preach and to do the same thing with a book, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, I believe it was called, 3-volume. And so Ban Maharaj was there, I think, 2 or 3 years. But there wasn't much cultivation going on. Not many devotees were being made. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he called him back. So that's just one tidbit to remember, and we'll refer back to that as well. So then, continuing Srila Prabhupada's letter. And then, just to show that he's giving this instruction to all of his disciples, and Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, is taking it very seriously. So, back to the lecture. And then in 1936, on the 31st of December, that means just after writing this letter, a fortnight before his departure, he passed away. But I took that order of my spiritual master very seriously. But I did not think that I'll have to do such and such thing. I was at that time a householder. But this is the arrangement of Krishna. If we strictly try to serve the spiritual master, his order, then Krishna will give us all facilities. That is the secret. Although there was no possibility, I never thought, but I took it a little seriously by studying a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the verse Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana 241. In connection with that verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives his commentary that we should take up the words from our spiritual master as our life and soul. We should try to carry out the instruction, the specific instruction of the spiritual master very rigidly without caring for our personal benefit or loss. So I tried a little bit in that spirit. So he has given me all facilities to serve him. Things have come to this stage that in this old age, I have come to your country, and you are also taking this movement seriously, trying to understand it. We have got some books now, so there is little foothold of this movement. So on this occasion of my spiritual master's departure, as I am trying to execute his will, similarly, I shall also request you to execute the same order through my will. I am an old man. I can also pass away at any moment. That is nature's law. Nobody can check it. So that is not very astonishing. But my appeal to you on this auspicious day of the departure of my Guru Maharaj, that at least to some extent, you have to understand the essence of Krishna consciousness movement. You should try to push it on. People are suffering for want of this consciousness. Okay, so that's the end of that. So I'm sure we've all heard this, how much impact that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Vyavasayatmika Buddhi had on Srila Prabhupada. So he mentioned it here, but he also mentioned it many other times. That when he read that commentary and he understood, okay, we are to make the instructions of our spiritual master our life and soul, he actually took that to heart. So the very first time Srila Prabhupada met with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Srila Prabhupada at the time, he was actually a Gandhi man. He was a nationalist. And so when he heard from his spiritual master, and he told him, you should preach in English, our Srila Prabhupada, coming from that nationalistic, we'll say conditioning at the time, or no, that's not the right word, but we'll say that. He said, well, but first we have to, right now, since we're colonized, first we have to, reestablish, our independence, right? And then after that, then people can take us seriously. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, hey, you don't worry about it, because this Krishna consciousness is transcendental. It's not dependent on, a culture being subverted by someone else and this and that and the other thing. You don't have to worry about that. You just preach Krishna consciousness. Everything else will take care of itself, right? And so his very first instruction was to preach in English. And then his very last instruction to our Srila Prabhupada was to preach in English. And so Srila Prabhupada, because of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi, verse 241, he actually took this as his life and soul. So much so that at a very old age, he begged passage on a steamship to America. He had a case of books, and I just realized this recently. It was 200 sets of those 3-volume books, the first 3 volumes of the first canto. So he actually had 600 books with him, right? And then he had, I don't remember how many rupees, very few, nothing that would get you anything in America. And he got there, problem after problem, his things were stolen. There were so many difficulties. On the way over, he had heart attacks on the boat. There were so many reasons for him to give up. But he didn't, because he took that order of his spiritual master as his life and soul. He could have said, well, I gave it a shot. I did my best. These Americans, they're not really, appreciative. They can't grasp the philosophy. But no, he said, okay, no, this is my life and soul. I will follow. He even was inquiring at the shipyard. When's the next? He had a return ticket, so he was asking, when's the next ship going back to India? And they'd tell him, but he thought, well, I may as well stay a little longer and see, what Krishna has in store for me. And so we all know what happened then. Krishna sent him some unusual followers, and they were able to spread this Krishna consciousness movement at a very rapid rate on a very massive scale all over the world. So many temples were opened. So many books were translated. It's just amazing if you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, how much he accomplished in such a small amount of time with the resources that he had, but this was all Krishna's mercy. So getting back to today's Srimad Bhagavatam verses, the difference between reminding everyone who sees us about Krishna and reminding everyone who sees us about anything else is whether we appreciate the instructions of our spiritual master or if we take them as our life and soul, right? So this is a very important thing. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he made a mistake and ate a mango when he was 2 or 3 years old, that when he was 2 or 3 years old, he made a mistake. He ate a mango that wasn't offered to the deity. And he made that, he took a lesson from that, made it his life and soul never to eat another mango again because he considered himself an offender, right? And so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur took this movement as his life and soul. He tried to spread Krishna consciousness to the West. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took this movement as his life and soul. He was sending all of his disciples, you preach in English, you go to the West. And then our Srila Prabhupada took Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instructions as his life and soul. And he followed through and he went and did that. Now, our Srila Prabhupada is also asking us, if you missed that when I was reading there, he's asking us to do the same thing, right? He's asking us to take this movement as seriously as he did, to make this movement our life and soul, right? And if we can do that, instead of just appreciating Krishna consciousness, because we all appreciate Krishna consciousness, we're all here. Most of us have taken initiation. We're listening to Bhagavatam class. Pardon me. We have an appreciation for Krishna, right? But for most of us, when people describe us to somebody else or think about us, they may mention Krishna consciousness, but there's probably so many other things that they mention. Like I learned the other day while I was having lunch with a bunch of friends, right? And so it's because we have this appreciation, but we're not taking it as our life and soul. Krishna consciousness isn't meant to be just an aspect of our life. It's meant to be our life, right? Because anything that we do in the material world, it goes through the 6 transformations. It comes into being, it grows for a while, it produces some byproduct, it remains for some time, it dwindles, and then it dies, it ends. That's how everything in the material world goes. Any material activity will go through those 6 changes. But spirituality, it's eternal. There's no loss of diminution on the past. So whatever spiritual progress we make, we keep that. No matter how many births we have to take in this material world, we keep that spiritual progress. And so it's really the only thing in our life that has ultimate value, right? And so we should take it very seriously, not just appreciate it, but actually make it our life and soul. And again, this doesn't necessarily happen overnight, although it can happen overnight. But generally, it's not the type of thing that just happens overnight. You know, all of a sudden, we're just completely dedicated to Krishna service, right? So we have to constantly assess our situation. How seriously are we taking this Krishna consciousness? We have to understand that it actually is in our best interest to slowly but surely become more serious about our Krishna consciousness and participate in Lord Chaitanya's movement, right? This is all about Lord Chaitanya's movement. And so we know what the acharyas want us to do. We have all of the instructions. We have all of the ingredients. We have everything we need to become proper devotees in Lord Chaitanya's movement. We just have to take proper advantage of them. And so the way we do that is to surround ourselves with like-minded devotees, take their association, show them appreciation, just like the appreciation was given to Maharaj Parikshit in today's verses, in connection with Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's service, Krishna's glories. Try to develop, not independently, because Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12 says that all of the qualities of the devatas automatically become manifest in a person who is engaging in Krishna's service. So it's not that we should independently try to get these qualities, but we should we can use this as like a litmus test to see if we're actually engaging in Krishna's service. Are these qualities becoming manifest as it's promised in Srimad Bhagavatam? Because if not, then there's a very good chance, and by very good I mean 100% chance, that we're not quite applying Krishna consciousness as well as we think we are. If we're not getting the result, it means that we're doing something that's not completely connected to the way we're meant to do it. In other words, we're appreciating the process of Krishna consciousness, but we haven't made it our life and soul yet, right? So as that appreciation increases through the association of devotees, through taking the instructions of the spiritual master and following the examples of the sadhus, and very intently chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as given to us by Lord Chaitanya, our Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. We should very much cultivate this appreciation, grow this appreciation for Krishna until it actually becomes our life and soul. And when we come to that position, then when people see us, when people talk about us, they will only describe Krishna and Krishna's pastimes, right? They won't be reminded of other things. So again, I'm just going to repeat the 2 things that we can learn from this group of verses, or the two things that we talked about today, and then I'll open for questions. So the first one was we should act in such a way that people are constantly reminded of Krishna. It should be that when people see us, they remember Krishna. When people introduce us to someone or talk about us, everything they say should be about Krishna, Krishna's pastimes, his service, his devotees, etc. And then the second one is that when we greet a devotee friend or superior, we should receive them in this way, following this format. Let these devotees know that they remind us of Krishna and that we appreciate their valuable association, but do it in such a way as to not embarrass them. So don't glorify them directly, but glorify the service, their spiritual master, talk about the temple they came from, the deities there, whatever their service is, their spiritual master, etc., these things. And so if we do these two things, try to become a better example to always remind others about Krishna, because when Srila Prabhupada talks about nonviolence in his purports, most people, when we're reading for the first time, we think, oh, he's going to talk about vegetarianism. But he actually says nonviolence means that everyone you meet, you should give Krishna consciousness to, because you have something valuable. And if you're not giving it to others, you're committing violence upon them, right? And so many times Srila Prabhupada defined nonviolence in this way. So we should make it our goal that we remind others of Krishna just automatically, spontaneously, right? That's nonviolence, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second one, following this format to actually understand how we should receive others, what areas of these devotees that we appreciate, and then it encourages the devotees to continue on. It's quite nice. It's not that they're looking for validation or appreciation or anything like that. They're just happy to see that they're inspiring others to speak about Krishna's pastimes just by being in your presence, right? Okay, so we'll stop there and see if there are any questions or comments, additions, or if anyone wants to say anything more about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There's so many great, wonderful stories about him, but I just wanted to relate to today's verse, and hopefully I did that in a way that might inspire us to really cultivate our Krishna consciousness. Anyone? Kavalya.
Very nice class, quite instructive and very nice about talking about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So that's his day, and there is program in the temple today, so most of the people will come and join there. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Bye. Anything else? Yes, Vishnu Gadaprabhu.
Both, thank you. When we greet somebody, that kind of the three things you mentioned were kind of the standard Vedic etiquette. And I was just thinking that we might want to add something for devotees. An important thing could be, in addition, to offer obeisances.
Yes. Very good. It's a very important thing. I've noticed that in the early 90s, we did that a lot. The first time we saw any devotee in the temple, we would offer obeisances. So normally it would happen right before Mangalarti. People would come to the temple room, but if for some reason a devotee didn't come to Mangalarti, we saw them a little later, we would offer them obeisances. And so these days, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be happening quite as frequently. I'm not sure what the reason is, but thank you for adding that, Vishnu Gadaprabhu. That's a very important thing. Is there anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, very nice class. Very nice. We learned a lot. I hope I will try to apply some of these. And what I was thinking, that when the guest comes, we can also give them prasadam. Some prasadam.
Yeah, there's a whole list of things that
Yeah.
that we can do, but those are the three that we should just always do. And even if it's not a devotee, that's why the three things are there. If it is a devotee, as Vishnu Gadapu said, then we also offer them obeisances. But any guest, even an enemy, these are the three things that we should be always giving: a seat, a drink, and some kind words, because they should forget, if they are your enemy, they should forget that they're your enemy. That's the etiquette.
Okay.
But we can also follow the there are 16 or 64 you can also do. It's essentially it's the same things that you would do to Krishna, the deity. You also do those things similarly for the devotees. And we see Krishna himself, when he receives someone, he follows this. He receives one of his devotees, he stands up first, and then he offers prayers, offers arti, bathes their feet, gives them a nice place to sit, feeds them sumptuous prasadam, all that. So we see it's there. The examples are there in Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're available. We just have to.
I am wondering, how can we adopt this obeisances thing? You say in the 90s we used to do that. Every time we see a devotee, we just bow down. But now it's, we completely stop it. So how do we start it again?
Just do it. That's how we started again. Whatever the reason was, maybe people thought it wasn't cool, or maybe it was because in different situations, like if you meet someone on the street, a devotee on the street, some people are thinking, we may disturb these people if we get down on the ground. Maybe they think the ground's dirty, but you could still do it. It doesn't matter. There's no consideration where you really. I mean, I guess there are some circumstances where different parts of the world where you're not allowed to do anything that shows any sort of semblance to religion. Okay, so maybe you can't do it there, but no, here we can do. But at least in the temple where it's a common thing anyway, no one's going to look at you funny. We just have to make it normal again to appreciate devotees in that particular way. So you see a devotee, you say, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. You bow down. This is standard. Yes, Brihat Mridanga Prabhu, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is actually Bhakta Max on Yeah. My question was, thank you for giving class, by the way. It's really inspiring. My question was how to avoid kind of complacency and falling into kind of dry ritual. I feel like, you mentioned appreciation for Krishna consciousness, and sometimes I've heard that we're either improving or we're slipping in Krishna consciousness. And it seems like if we're, not intentional about our day-to-day activities, it can fall into ritual and then complacency and, degrading appreciation.
Yes, thank you for that. The solution there is to, so at first we have sadhana bhakti, means we do things because we know we're supposed to do. We're supposed to do it. We know it's in our best interest to do it, right? But it can become robotic, as you mentioned, maybe even not sincere. So if we focus not on what we are doing, but why we are doing it, then that helps us actually develop an appreciation for it, right? Because, for example, we'll talk about obeisances. Some people come from a background where, their parents say, I bow down to no man, right? And this is a thing. So it's against the conditioned nature of some people to actually bow down, right? And so if they have that conditioning, then they feel that when they're bowing down, that they're doing something against their nature, and they're not actually understanding why or what the appreciation is. They're just doing it because they're told they're doing it and they're regretting it, right? But if we understand first of all, that we're offering obeisances not to the material person that's in front of us, but their connection to Krishna through the disciplic succession. That's what we're offering obeisances to. And then the reason we're doing it is because we value them, because they have something that we actually admire, something that we're trying to get. And while offering our respect in this way, we're opening up the door to receive knowledge from these other individuals who have something that they can give to us, this help us in our Krishna consciousness. So if we focus on why we're doing things, it helps a lot more. Just like with the songs we sing every day, for example, if we're singing them in Sanskrit and we have no idea what they mean, we may, after a while, just not have any sort of flavor, taste for it, and wondering why we're even doing it. But if we know what they mean, and we know why we're doing it. We're singing prayers to the spiritual master, and what the spiritual master has done to pull us out of the very dangerous situation that we're in. One thing I wanted to talk about more, so I'm glad this came up, is all of us, each one of us, everyone that has any contact with ISKCON, we owe so much to so many people that we don't even know, but especially Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur for that commentary that inspired Srila Prabhupada to take his spiritual master's instruction as his life and soul. Obviously, Srila Prabhupada, his spiritual master, Lord, so many people that we don't even know that contributed to where we are now, right? And if we look at our lives before we met the devotees and the path that we were on, we see that we're actually very different people now than we would be had we not met the devotees. So there's a whole lot of value that's there. So we just have to understand what that value is, and then understand why we're doing all the things that we're doing. And in that way, we actually appreciate them. Then we develop a steadiness when we're doing them. Then we get a taste for doing them. And then we actually become attached to doing those things. Right. So at first, yes, it can seem robotic or what's another word? Disingenuine. There's got to be a word that means not genuine. But aside from not genuine, that's two words. But so. But when we get to that point, in other words, we should still do it. There are rules and regulations that we follow, but we should learn why we're doing those things and then continue to do it. And then if we do that, then we develop an appreciation. Did that help? Okay.
Yes, it was amazing. So it's like a intentional going deeper and really answering the question of why we're doing this. And that question leads us to reflect on all of the sacrifices that have been given so that we may have an opportunity for what is ultimately the greatest wealth of Krishna consciousness. Right.
Bringing us from an appreciation for these instructions to making them our life and soul. So that was the theme of this class. Not Thank just you. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
We don't see any other hand up. Thank you again, Prabhu, for making that connection and giving us practical advice as to how to apply this verse. You connected it very nicely with how Srila Prabhupada appreciated his Guru and how we need to look into these things. So,
do you want to tell everyone about the program today at the temple? Is there a schedule for it?
Hare Krishna. I can do that. We started. We said the newsletter started at 11 o'clock. I believe Vishnu Prabhu said he would be there reading about 10 o'clock. So if you want to come early, we can do that. But we'll have 11 o'clock. They'll be reading about the life and pastimes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. We'll have Pushpanjali around 11:45. Guru Puja and Arti. And then 12:30, there'll be a Prasadam feast. So a half-day fast today for the devotees. So I hope to see you there, everyone, if you can make it. I know it's a work day, but if you can make it to the temple, it'd be wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Charachandra Prabhu.
Thank you, sir.
Especially for joining us from Mayapur. That's and I know it's a whole different time schedule, and for you to do that is means a lot to us.
My pleasure. I wish I could do more, but anyway, I'll be back next week.
Yeah. Well, we hope to see you. I don't know. You coming back to Pennsylvania? Or are you going to Kentucky?
Yeah, it looks like I'll be in Pennsylvania a little bit before I head back to Kentucky. So,
okay.
Krishna
Maybe
willing.
we can make an arrangement for you to come to the temple for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
All right then. We'll meet again. This evening at 5 o'clock, we'll have the happy hour, and then tomorrow morning again at 7:50. Actually 7:15. The program will be live from the temple room. So we'll see you. We'll see you on Zoom then.
Jai. Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
jai.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha
Sindhubhyeva patitanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you very much.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.